This is video 13 for things not working, and it is called Documentation of the Source Code. For me and others like me, to be able to edit the C++ code in the future is a very key issue. In fact, it would be helpful for me and others to be able to make small edits to it right now. Every now and then there are trivial things I see that need to be changed, and it would actually be faster for me to just go and change it than to tell Frank about it. Of course, when you make those kinds of edits, you have to coordinate well so that things don't get on top of each other, but that's easy to do. I do group editing a lot. So a trivial example came up for me recently, and I'm going to use that example just to sort of as a placeholder to make the point that we need better documentation of the source code. Okay, here's what I wanted to do. Here's IRIC, and in the setting up the calculation condition, the coefficient of friction scale is set as a default to 3. If you change it to 1, and then you go reset to defaults, you'll see it goes back to 3. So the default is 3. So I thought to myself, I want to change the default to 1. And I figured that changing a default like that should be a fairly simple edit. Someplace it says set CF scale default 3, and I would change the 3 to a 1. So in order to do that, I turned to the source code. Okay. And you see here. Okay, that. So first I looked in the source code, and I'll bring that up in a second here, for something called defaults. And I couldn't find anything in there that said defaults. And then I just ran a search where it would search in every single file and look for the word CF scale. Okay, let me show you a little bit of that. Work. So first I ran a search in. Let me show you what I have. Here's what Frank had sent me. Source code and all the versions of the code up until that point. So inside source code, this is code migration. I figured it wasn't there. Although I've searched in all of these, I finally came down to the fact that it's probably in the solver where you need to look. Although there were other places when you searched for dependency, or when you searched for default, that a word came up, but it had nothing to do with the defaults. So searching for default basically led to nothing. So when I search in this solver, it comes up with this. So everywhere in these particular codes and pieces of the code, the CF scale appears. So I looked in every one of them, but just to show you, for example, there's looking in the JP engine. And here I just run a simple search for CF scale, and I just kept looking until I could find. And I looked in here. I actually read the code the best I could to see if I could find out what was going on in the code and where the defaults might be set. But there's very little to go on in this code. So searching for CF scale, you see it continues to turn up. But nowhere could I find it set to default. Now, I did the same thing for all of the others in fact, running a search, CF, yes, lots of definitions, but nowhere did I find default and to be able to set the default. So this is sort of the blindest way to peck around, but it's what I had to do to try and find this, and I wasn't able to succeed. So how do you find your way around? Well, I just used the searching for phrases. First I searched for defaults, couldn't find it. Then I searched for CF scale, or the coefficient of friction scale, couldn't find that. I looked in each of the C++ source codes and couldn't find it. So, a disclaimer, of course, is I'm not a programmer and I don't read C++. But I wasn't a programmer before, and this Meander code has been written in 2 previous computer languages, Pascal and MATLAB. And for the better part of 20 years, I have edited both of those codes. I edited the Pascal code extensively by learning enough about it and learning my way around. And then in MATLAB, I did the same. And it's going to be imperative that people edit these codes in the future. So we need comments in the code itself that will help someone edit it. And again, I may not have used the best example. Perhaps those defaults are set someplace else, maybe even in an IREC portion. But we need to know that too. Everyone agrees that the source code needs to be documented for others to be able to work with it. And I imagine that that would involve at least a couple of things. Some expository English in the code itself so you can find your way around, with maybe groupings and headings so that you know where you are, and some map or guideline outside the code, what would essentially be developer's user's guide, so someone could figure out how to get into the code and how to change things if they needed to. Again, I may not have used the best example, a trivial example, changing a default value of a coefficient, but the point is made. It's important to have the code documented so that others can work on it. Okay, thank you very much.